Welcome back, Defenders. We've entered this new phase of the war. Will the Russians accept Ukraine's 30-day ceasefire? Do the Russians actually want peace? You and I know the answers to these questions, but I think we still have to go through the motions and pretend like we don't know what's going to happen. Putin-Trump meeting dates to be discussed after U.S. envoy briefs the White House on Ukraine talks. So Steve Witkoff is Trump's actual special envoy to Russia. He flew to Moscow and met with Vladimir Putin. They spoke for several hours. Witkoff is now back in D.C. and he's briefing Donald Trump. So according to the Kremlin, there's going to be a Putin-Trump meeting, a Putin-Trump peace summit at some point in the next couple weeks. So what's the holdup? Since Tuesday, almost a week, a proposal for a ceasefire has been on the table. A silence from war in the air, at sea, and on the front lines. This is an American proposal. Ukraine didn't want to do this. America more or less forced them. A full, unconditional ceasefire for 30 days. In that time, without killings, it would truly be possible to negotiate all aspects of real peace. So what's the problem? A ceasefire on Putin's terms would cripple Ukraine while strengthening Russia. This is the analysis for the Institute for the Study of War. So Putin didn't accept the ceasefire, and the conditions that he's demanding are not beneficial to Ukraine. They're pretty absurd. They explain what they want during this ceasefire on Kremlin State TV. Let me read for you the analysis of this commentator. If the United States is truly interested in ending hostilities, the most important factor is not even a ceasefire itself, but rather the cessation of arms supplies to Ukraine. The question arises, how can this be controlled? Accordingly, Russian-American inspection teams should be established to present at every airfield where weapons are delivered and further transported to Ukraine. They should have diplomatic immunity and satellite communication capabilities. If our American partners genuinely want peace, let's start with this. So the Russians are saying they won't agree to a ceasefire until all weapons deliveries to Ukraine are halted. Not just American weapons deliveries to Ukraine, but all weapons deliveries from the European allies or whoever. And they want Russian-American inspection teams at the Polish border to make sure that no new weapons are getting into Ukraine. Zelensky slams Putin's very manipulative statements on the ceasefire. This is nonsense. This is the Russians just wanting Ukraine not to be able to defend themselves for when the Russians start this war again. However, Ukraine is putting in the gestures. They're the ones showing effort, not Russia. Now it will be difficult for Russia to wriggle out. If Russia agrees to a ceasefire, it must demonstrate its willingness to end the war, or it will show that it wants to continue. This is what everyone is waiting for. How can Trump and Putin meet for a grand peace summit if Russia is demanding the disarmament of Ukraine? Putin also said he wants Ukraine to stop mobilizing men into the military, to stop mobilization, to just make Ukraine defenseless. So this brings into question the Kursk operation. This map isn't completely updated. There's always a two-day delay. But the Ukrainians have fully pulled out of Kursk. If you want, we can go back in time, 6 or 7 months, and I can show you how much territory they actually controlled. And yes, Ukraine was under pressure this entire time, but they were holding. They were dug in. They had defenses built. Their supply lines were still intact. So the timing of this withdrawal from Kursk and Putin Trump cutting off military aid to Ukraine and intelligence sharing, did the United States collaborate with Russia for the recovery of the Kursk Oblast? And it sure feels like theater happening between Putin and Trump. Ukraine troops in Kursk Oblast must surrender. This is what Putin demanded. And they just withdrew. This was an orderly withdrawal that President Zelensky ordered. But Donald Trump yesterday tweeted out this insane message, or 2 days ago. At this very moment, thousands of Ukrainian troops are completely surrounded by the Russian military and in a very bad and vulnerable position. I have strongly requested to Putin that he spare their lives. This would be a horrible massacre, one not seen since World War II. God bless them all. No, this is all fantasy. This is not real. Operation in Russia's Kursk Oblast continues. There is no encirclement. It was an orderly withdrawal. Here is the reports from people who know the soldiers on the ground. Our team has a good understanding of the situation in Kursk. There are no encircled troops. The retreat was generally organized but occasionally chaotic. There was no threat of encirclement and no evidence suggests otherwise. It's wise to rely on intelligence, not what Putin is saying. I do think the United States put pressure on Ukraine to withdraw from Kursk because Vladimir Putin would never agree to a ceasefire while Ukrainian soldiers were still on Russia's sovereign soil. So the cutoff of military aid and intelligence, I don't even think it was for the ceasefire. I think it was to force Zelensky to pull Ukraine's troops out of Kursk. Either way, the last 7 months were a success. The city of Pokrovsk still holds. Kharkiv still holds. Kherson, Zaporizhia still holds. You can either fight the Russians on Ukraine's soil or you can fight it on Russian soil. And for the last 7 months, it was the Russians bombing their own cities and bombing their own civilians. To no effect. So what is Russia's ruling elite saying about this Trump-proposed ceasefire? And here's Dmitry Medvedev, the former president of Russia. UK updates Trump. Russia should accept the proposal for a ceasefire in Ukraine without any conditions, says the British Foreign Secretary. Britain and its minister can shove their idea back up their S-hole it came from, diplomatically speaking. Yeah, I don't think Dmitry Medvedev wants peace. What about Solyov and Kremlin State TV? What are they saying? And Solyov thinks Trump's an idiot. He thinks people in MAGA are idiots. This is what the Russians actually think about Americans and their ceasefire and peace talks. Rubio is repeating false narratives that have been imposed by false Western propaganda. What stolen kids are to be returned and where? Every phase stated by Rubio is a bitter legacy of him sitting in the Senate or in Congress, wherever he was sitting for a long time. This was little Rubio, and not the head of Trump's State Department. No, for us, all of this is insignificant. Let me explain it simply with a gesture. Here you go, all the way in. So this is the Russians telling Donald Trump and everyone in MAGA, go shove it. We don't want peace. We don't want a ceasefire. Is our answer clear to you? The Red Army is carrying out the tasks set by the Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Russian Federation. Victory will be ours, the enemy will be destroyed, and expelled from our land. If all of NATO's forces decide to test our resolve, I will remind them of the statement of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief on February 24th, 2022. We will respond in a way you can't even imagine. So this is the Russians once again threatening thermonuclear war and to kill hundreds of millions of people across Europe and North America. This is who MAGA says wants peace, and Zelensky is a warmonger for defending himself. I also want to share this clip. I can't help myself. Trump saying his 24-hour Ukraine war solution was sarcasm, not actual reality. Here's the clip of Trump saying that when he said he could solve this war in 24 hours, he wasn't being serious. He was being sarcastic.
But as a candidate, you said you would have this war settled in 24 hours.
Well, I was being a little bit sarcastic when I said that. What I really mean is I'd like to get it settled.
In other words, he lied. Donald Trump lied about everything to get elected. He was willing to lie about anything to stay out of jail. We are where we are, guys. We have to figure this out going forward and do our best when the President of the United States is a pathological liar and even admits to it now. And then there's this guy who's actually the President of the United States, Elon Musk. I know many of you are not on Twitter. Probably 95% of you watching my videos are not on Twitter. But this man is insane. And his goal is to say so many insane things every single day, it can't be reported on. You don't know about it if you're not actually watching his insane Twitter feed. But he posted this yesterday. You can't truly call yourself peaceful unless you're capable of great violence. You're not capable. If you're not capable of violence, you're not peaceful. You're harmless. Important distinction. This is literally George Orwell's 1984. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. You can't be peaceful unless you're capable of tremendous violence? And Elon Musk continues attacking free and democratic societies. At the moment, he's trying to destroy the European Union. Here's a picture he tweeted out. Imagine you love so much being governed that you want a government for your government. In the United States, we have the exact same thing. We have 50 states with 50 separate governments, and then a national federal government on top of it. We also have state and local governments. We have governments for our governments for our governments here in the United States, and the richest man in the world hates this and wants to get rid of everything. Musk's Doge stops funding group looking for Ukrainian children deported to Russia. The Humanitarian Research Lab at Yale, which played a key role in repatriating over 1,200 Ukrainian children from Russia, had its government funding taken away by Elon Musk. Gets worse. Trump silences Voice of America and Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. Here is the statement put out by Radio Free Europe. The cancellation of Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty's grant agreement would be a massive gift to America's enemies. The Iranian Ayatollahs, Chinese communist leaders, and autocrats in Moscow and Minsk would celebrate the demise of Radio Free Europe after 75 years. Handing our adversaries a win would make them stronger and America weaker. This is the goal of Elon Musk, to weaken the United States as much as possible, help Russia, help China, help Hungary, help Belarus, help any dictator in the world that wants to work with Elon. So the problem with Voice of America and Radio Free Europe is it's for international audiences. They translate their stories in dozens of languages. It's not primarily Americans consuming it. So here is the thoughts of somebody who grew up in Eastern Europe. So it is. I can't even begin to describe how an Eastern European who grew up on the other side of the Iron Curtain feels about this. Voice of America and Radio Free Europe were the beacons of hope, the window into what the free world looked like, and they gave people hope to persist and eventually bring down the communist regimes that many thought would last forever. And what about Russia? What about China? As funding for Radio Liberty and Voice of America gets cut, Russia is spending millions to push their message in as many languages as possible, including here in Ukraine. You think they won't rush to fill this gap? This is a huge blow. And I have to say this, but what Elon Musk is doing is illegal. When you see a headline like Trump orders the closure of Voice of America, that's not how it works. Congress voted to create this. Congress funded it. Everything that Donald Trump and Elon Musk is doing right now is illegal. And just because they say they can do it, that doesn't make it legal. So Congress has given up. We don't have three co-equal branches of government anymore. The Republicans in Congress have surrendered their power, and Elon Musk is dismantling as much as he can to help Russia and China. Does Elon Musk have any thoughts about RT being funded by the Russian government or all of China's news agencies? They don't have freedom of speech or freedom of the press in Russia and China, and Elon and Trump only have criticism for America. So we're seeing results in Russia. Russian favorability towards the United States nearly doubles since Trump's return. Back when Joe Biden was president, positive attitudes towards the United States was only at 12% as of May of 2023. But now that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are doing everything they can to help Russia, favorability in Russia towards the United States is now at 30%. These are the teams. What team do you want to fight on going forward? I know I should be putting more flags on here. On the left, the lights, we can include Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, Taiwan. And on this side, we've got North Korea, Iran, Belarus. So for every action, there's going to be a reaction. And we're currently seeing it. I do think the election of Donald Trump, and especially that disastrous event in the Oval Office, it's motivated a lot of people. It's starting to wake people up. And we're seeing massive protests, massive rallies in countries that have corrupt, shitty governments favorable towards Russia. So one of Russia's oldest allies is Serbia, and they've been actually pretty quiet the last 3 years. But there's still a corrupt pro-Russian government, and the people are taking to the streets. This was a massive, more than 1 million person rally to protest against the dictator of Serbia. I forget how to say his name, Vučić. Sorry, I should have Googled how to say his name. But for 1 million people to turn out in Serbia, when the entire adult population is 5.8 million, that would be the equivalent of 46 million Americans showing up to protest somewhere in America. So let me play for you this clip. This is the capital city of Serbia, Belgrade. This is what this massive protest against their corrupt government looks like. This is what we need to see in America. We're not there yet, but I think we're going to get there. Here's another clip from the protest during the daylight time so you can see the crowd for yourself. This is 1 million people in Serbia who want real democracy. They want a government free of Russian corruption. They want real freedom of the press, freedom of speech, right to protest, representative government. And Elon Musk is silent. Donald Trump is silent. America will no longer stand or help anybody who's oppressed and wants real freedom. We've also got protests in Hungary. Thousands rally against Hungary's Orban in Budapest. Orban at some point has to have an election right, and everybody wants to vote this guy out. But he's claiming that he's going to purge the media and organizations of US and Brussels influence. The bugs survived the winter. Orban compared independent organizations to parasites that need to be eradicated. Donald Trump is president and dismantling Voice of America and Radio Free Europe. And these shitty dictators are still blaming America for civil unrest in their own country. Here's a picture of what this rally looked like. And this is the opposition leader. His name is Peter Magyar. I don't know anything about him. I just know he's not Viktor Orban, so therefore he has my support. But here is the speech that Peter gave in front of a huge protest crowd in Bucharest.
Itt a tavasz, a magyarok tavasza, és mi közösen véget vetünk az Orbán télnek.
This is what real democracy looks like. I don't know anything about this guy, but I hope he stays safe, and I hope he can get a fair election, and I hope he wins. I also don't want to forget about the protests against Russia's puppet governments. Protests in Georgia are continuing on day 108. We mentioned Serbia, we mentioned Hungary, and there's also protests in Romania against the corrupt candidates that Moscow is funding, trying to gain control of Romania. Enough is enough. Greenland Prime Minister criticizes Trump's annexation efforts. So we have the poll. This is the latest poll of people in Greenland. Do they want to be annexed by the United States? And only 6% of Greenlanders support becoming part of America. 9% are unsure. And 85% said no. No thank you, Donald Trump. Greenland does not want to be part of the United States. So here is a protest in the capital city, I think, of Nuuk. And the entire population of Greenland is only 50,000 people. This is a small town that is their capital. And still, we got hundreds of people to protest Donald Trump in the United States. The people of Greenland don't want to be controlled by Elon Musk and a bunch of tech oligarchs. Portugal has canceled their order for F-35s, and they're now replacing them with a European fighter. Donald Trump seriously screwed up. By cutting off the military aid to Ukraine while fighting a war, this has shaken the resolve of a lot of our NATO partners, and they're now second-guessing or questioning whether or not they should be buying or using American equipment. If the United States, in a time of war, will cut off military aid, parts, maintenance, expertise, whatever, you can't trust the United States, and you should not be buying or using any of their equipment if you can avoid it. So a lot of people are looking at South Korea's military industry now. Obviously, if they can purchase within Europe, that is preferable. And it's also Canada. Defense Minister Bill Blair on CBC said that the government are examining whether they will acquire 88 F-35 fighter jets or whether other investments might be better for Canada. We are being compelled to look at all options. Because Donald Trump is threatening to invade and annex Canada, Canada doesn't feel like they can partner with the United States and purchase our military equipment. So this is going to be devastating for many reasons, but you guys get it. But this is actually crazy because Trump has triggered a rebirth of liberalism in Canada. The approval rating for the Liberal Party in Canada, this is Justin Trudeau, was 19% just 3 months ago in December. But because MAGA wants to invade Ottawa and subjugate them, support for the Liberal Party is now at 50%. It's more than doubled in 3 months in response to Donald Trump's fascism. Let's get to the bad news for Russia. Ukraine's been busy. Moscow targeted by a second Ukrainian drone attack in a week. I don't know if Ukraine is just trying to launch as many as they can before this ceasefire happens, or if they're launching as many as they can to pressure Russia to accept the ceasefire. But Ukraine unleashed 126 drones across Russia over the last night or two. Random videos of stuff catching on fire. Here are the highlights. Ukraine drones strike a Russian S-300-400 missile depot and a gas facility. Large fire reported at an oil refinery in the Krasnodar Krai region. Drones strike an oil refinery in Russia's Volgograd, causing a fire near a railway station. There are videos, but it's just a fire in the distance in the middle of the night. We don't know how bad the damage is. Massive fire spreads over Russia's Tuapse oil refinery after explosions. Ukraine has to have hit this refinery at least 4 or 5 times now, but check out that canister going up in flames. Russia could accept a ceasefire, but they're choosing not to. And Ukraine, for this last one, this wasn't a drone. Ukraine's long-range Neptune missile successfully strikes at 1,000 kilometers. So Ukraine has used their Neptune missiles before, but they've made modifications to make it ground-launched, but also to extend the range. So this oil refinery in Tuapse was struck with a Neptune missile. We don't know what Ukraine's capability is as far as producing more or how they want to use them, but Russia's not shooting them down. They have to have triple or quadruple air defense around the Kerch Strait Bridge, and this Neptune missile basically went right past them. Ukrainian special forces destroy a Russian UTS-TM radar system. If you want to see the video, I'll link it down below. This was a high-value radar system, and Ukraine got it. Now for the good news for Ukraine, and I can't believe I'm saying this. Ukraine to receive jamming-resistant GLSDB bombs as ATACMS run out. I talked a lot about GLSDB in 2023, and then it finally arrived, and it was a dud. They couldn't get it to work in an electronic warfare jamming environment. So Boeing and Saab spent another year trying to fix the problem, and after 19 test flights, Boeing and Saab says that GLSDB is now okay to be used. So they're giving them to the Ukrainians to once again try and use on the battlefield. This was already paid for almost over 2 years ago, but I hope it works, guys. I hope it makes a difference on the battlefield. Ukraine receives $35 million energy aid from Canada. Thank you so much to the fantastic people of Canada. Sweden approves $300 million artillery package for Ukraine. Thank you so much to Sweden. Finland announces a €200 million military aid package. Thank you so much to the people of Finland. Netflix CEO Reed Hastings donates $2 million to Ukraine's White Stork charity for drone jammers. So I will say thank you to Reed Hastings. I did Google it, and during the first year of the war, he also donated $1 million. But Reed Hastings is worth $5.2 billion. So I'm skeptical of this donation amount of $2 million and why he's doing it now. And I think it's because you guys are boycotting Netflix. A lot of people in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, across Europe, they're trying to find ways to boycott the United States because they're mad at Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And one of the simplest things you can do is just cancel your streaming service, whether it's Disney Plus or Netflix or whatever. So I think Reed Hastings is trying to do some PR damage, and he made this donation trying to say he supports Ukraine, but for anyone who wants to boycott the United States, it's your decision what services you want to cut and what you want to keep to show America that you're dissatisfied with Donald Trump's policy objectives. This is good news. McDonald's in Ukraine is bringing back the breakfast menu. I guess when McDonald's reopened last year, they only had lunch items to keep their operations simplified, but they announced they're bringing back breakfast sandwiches. It's about normalcy, guys. I understand this is not fantastic food, but it's about having access and the ability and feeling like things are normal. Final clip I want to play for you is once again from friends of the channel, Zarina Zabriskie, and she wants to show you the unbreakable spirit of Ukrainians. So this was a beautiful moment that she caught with her camera in Kyiv.
Someone's having a music lesson.
There's also an air raid going on.
I think it's a music school here.
The message, keep calm and carry on. This bomb shelter is also a music school. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.